Hi, this is Amy Chen Mills with Moment of Truth with Amy Chen Mills. And you are joining myself and Mei-Ling Obinata, who is one of our teammates and members who does hosting and research for Moment of Truth with Amy Chen Mills in studio tonight. Good evening, Mei-Ling.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. And so this evening, what we are going to do since it's our last show of the year is do a little bit of a year-end review and then present the part 3 of our series called Oh, San Francisco, Where Art Thou?, which involved interviewing 4 different folks who do research, who produce podcasts, who look into campaign finances, with the Phoenix Project in San Francisco and Doom Loop Dispatch, amongst other organizations, to talk about in these shows what's happening in San Francisco and the East Bay in terms of the tech bro oligarchy takeover of that city and the attempted takeover of Oakland and other areas of the East Bay, which I think is instructive for everyone in the nation and around the world. But first, let's go to our year-end review, where we look at the shows that we produced over the last year and talk about our favorites. So, Mei-Ling, what do you say? Did you take a look at all our different shows? You did a lot on unions, and you interviewed Malcolm Harris.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I'm definitely biased. So, yes, I did shows on different aspects of labor with Jamie Edwards, who had been the first president of the Trader Joe's United, and also Eric Blanc. He's a Rutgers professor who also is an organizer for the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee and author of the book We Are the Union, and also
Anita Chan on eugenics and
tech.
Anita
Say Chan, who's a professor in University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, who wrote about predatory data and kind of the roots of that discipline in eugenics point of view. But my favorite shows were actually your shows about the Doom Loop Dispatch, actually.
Oh, San Francisco.
Those are actually my favorites. Yeah.
And Yanko's giving us thumbs up as well. That's amazing. Why?
Yeah. And I personally really enjoyed interviewing Malcolm Harris. In the reason the Doom Loop Dispatch shows are my favorite is that I feel like that sort of lays out a kind of like a blueprint for understanding everything that's happening nationally. Because you were covering that whole doom loop phenomenon. You've been covering that for a couple of years, and I think you were saying you were even covering it even before you had a Moment of Truth show.
Yeah, when we had Ali Collins on.
Yeah, and so understanding what are people doing with like some school board that's cute, right? That seems very sort of non-threatening, right? And just slowly. Somebody recently told me there's like this concept of the salami slice. You just keep slicing off a little bit of the salami at a time. Pretty soon you have the entire.
The salami is gone.
The salami's gone. They've eaten it all.
You have a pizza and it's gone. Okay.
Yeah. And so I had the great privilege or the pleasure of hearing this show, of course, before listeners are hearing it. So just the through lines in this episode included. The through lines are just really interesting, especially because we're talking about anti-Blackness and how that becomes weaponized in a political context, which I think we probably need to hear a lot more about.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do my favorites, and then we'll introduce the segment, which was pre-recorded, so you can't call in, but it is our part 3. You can find part 1 and part 2 of Oh, San Francisco on our podcast sites at Moment of Truth with Amy Chen Mills, and you can go back and find, I think we called them J.D. Vance and the Tech Bros of San Francisco because the connections are national. Peter Thiel and other tech folks in San Francisco and Silicon Valley are deeply connected to MAGA and what's happening at the White House. Obviously, we saw this with Elon Musk and Doge. We're seeing it with folks like Sam Altman being in the transition team for the mayor, of San Francisco. But let me go to just really quickly my favorite shows. My favorite shows, and this is related to this topic, and is one of my favorite shows was with Daniel Pinchbeck, because Daniel Pinchbeck, who is an author and writes about mysticism and prophecy and mythology and psychedelics, really has been in this world in his own way as someone who gets invited to conferences with Curtis Yarvin, who's like the intellectual leader of the tech bro takeover plan, right? With the idea that we will be ruled by either oligarchs or by, some kind of tech royalty. I don't know what they're thinking. But that show was really instructive because it ended up that Daniel Pinchbeck had done a lot of research, has met Curtis Yarvin, has interviewed Curtis Yarvin, has interviewed Laura Loomer, but then also has his own very ethical take on the whole situation, is pretty much horrified by it, and writes for Substack on it. But anyway, so that show, Daniel Pinchbeck, I think it's just called Daniel Pinchbeck, or An Interview with Daniel Pinchbeck, was one of my favorites. The immigration shows were two of my favorites, one with Ann Lopez about the roots of immigration, one with my cousin, Ejan Lin, who's at Yale Divinity School, and her new book, Immigration and the Apocalypse, I thought was really fascinating. And then I think my second favorite show besides Pinchbeck was Starhawk, because Starhawk, I interviewed her early on about what has just happened to our country after, I think, the inauguration of Donald Trump. And it was nice to hear from her, because she's been in movements for a long time. She's written about, in a futuristic way, what could happen to this country and San Francisco. She has had a different vision for her books. Unfortunately, it was a better vision. But, all the fascists were in Southern Cal, actually, in her books. Fifth Sacred Thing, and I think City of Refuge was the other book. Anyway, but she talked about activism, and she talked about how activists are so quick to dismiss each other, refuse to work with each other, or say you shouldn't be working on electoral politics, or you shouldn't be working on activism, or you shouldn't be this, or you shouldn't be that, and really how much that undermines our movements. It was really a great interview, I thought. I don't know if you listened to that one or not, because there were a lot to listen to.
I don't know if I listened to that one, but
she's very well known.
One thing, just like a concept from the Malcolm Harris book, What's Left, is that concept of having coalitions between different parts of the left.
Yes.
That's kind of what his book is about. If we actually want to tackle climate change and like surviving
big issues,
big issues like surviving together.
Yeah, human survival on Earth, which, it might seem trivial to people. His book was called What's Left, right? Mm-hmm. This was your second interview for Moment of Truth with Malcolm Harris, who wrote Palo Alto, who's a tremendous researcher, and I think pretty much a Marxist. I'm not sure if that's how he would define himself, but also open to all these other forms of work. Is that right, or is that not right?
Other forms of, I'm sorry, what?
Of activist work, whether electoral politics or working with centrists, or so that was interesting about that interview. We need to go to the show because we only have about 5 minutes before we have to get started with the recording to be on time with everything. Just real quickly, the people that you're going to hear from are Keenchik Wineta on the board of the Phoenix Project, Jeremy Mack, the executive director of the Phoenix Project, which do the electoral research on campaign finance in San Francisco. Kevin L. Jones and D. Scott Miller with the Doom Loop Dispatch. They do that together. There are going to be a bunch of names coming up in this podcast that some of you may not know. But just generally speaking, we wanted to summarize the show and the reason why it's so important. And we've talked about it a little bit already, but to me, it's sort of looking at San Francisco is like looking at what these tech oligarch folks, who now are some of the most powerful people on the planet, what their designs are for the rest of not just the nation, but the world, because they have network state cities in Honduras, and they're planning them like off the coast of Africa, all around the world. And these are their own sort of autonomously governed little nation states. And how would you describe this whole series that we've been doing?
I guess I think it's important to document all these phenomenon, right? Because you've been covering this for a long time, and for maybe people in 2025, it's like, oh my goodness, like maybe there's an element of surprise. But if you sort of go back a little ways, there's sort of a structure to their activities, and I feel like the shows you've done reveal those structures and those intentions
And the philosophies.
and the philosophies.
Behind them, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's something. I'll just shamelessly plug community radio. That's not necessarily something you're going to get in corporate media, because the corporate media has to, accept the money of perhaps some of these players.
Yeah, and they have not been connecting the dots. The best person connecting the dots is probably Gil Duran on Substack, and these folks that you're going to hear from very soon on this show. We wanted to give you some names that you're going to hear on the podcast in case you get a little bit lost. First up, William Orbendorf, who is a co-founder of LinkedIn, a billionaire in San Francisco, a Republican who became very involved in recalling school board members, progressive school board members, people of color on the school board. It became sort of a national campaign to remove school board members from the San Francisco Board of Trustees. And also Chesa Boudin, they were trying to also recall Chesa Boudin, who was a very progressive district attorney who was elected in San Francisco. So you'll hear these folks talk about how San Francisco is moving in a more progressive direction, like we see in New York right now, and the backlash that happened, because we do have all these incredible amounts of tech money. So you'll hear about William Orbendorf, who actually is Republican, but then they start to pretend like they're Democrats and get very involved in a Democratic, very blue city. And they get involved by funding, like AstroTurf organizations. And that's what William Orbendorf has done in San Francisco. I think there's a little bit of a conversation about public schools shutting down. They're starting to shut down, and how they then can come up for auction eventually to private interests, to private developers. And so that's something that Allie Collins, one of the school board members that we interviewed like 2-3 years ago, was speculating on. Like, she thought, well, it might be about the land that these schools are on. Yeah. And let's see, Christopher Rufo is mentioned. Christopher Rufo is at the Manhattan Institute, was the one who came up with critical race theory as boogeyman for the Republicans. Actually, Donald Trump, I believe, saw Chris Rufo somewhere on CNN or on Fox and picked up that whole thing. And now it's anti-DEI, not just anti-critical race theory. At the Manhattan Institute with Diane Yap, who was very involved in the recall of school board members in San Francisco, who now writes for the Manhattan Institute, is a founding member of the Lowell Foundation, and you may hear about that on this show. It was on past shows about how they were trying to make a school more equitable, the school board was, and Diane Yap was fighting tooth and nail against that. Gary Tan. Do you want to talk about Gary Tan real quick? We have 2 minutes, I think.
I think he's the president of Y Combinator.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot I could say, but I think we'd have to narrow it down.
Yeah, Gary Tan is, and Elon Musk actually together with Coinbase, we're donating a lot of money to Empower Oakland. You'll hear about that, trying to take over the Oakland City Council and the mayor's office. Philip Dreyfus, you'll hear about, who is a player in Oakland in the East Bay, who's a hedge fund manager, who's also donated a lot of money to recall Mayor Sheng Tao in Oakland, and the AG Pamela Price. You'll hear about a whole quote-unquote grassroots Black Action Alliance organization set up by the white hedge fund manager, Philip Dreyfus, to run against Barbara Lee, actually to run a black man against Barbara Lee, who we all know is very progressive, a very progressive black woman. David Sachs, who's now the crypto czar for crypto and AO czar for Donald Trump's administration. And then also Harmeet Dillon is mentioned, who is at the Justice Department, laughingly in charge of civil rights. Interesting also, NAACP Oakland, which actually has come out in support of flock mass surveillance cameras. Two comments, 2 sentences about the NAACP in Oakland. what you know about them?
I mean, I don't personally know any, I guess, things about them, but I have heard murmurings on social media about how they are captured by law enforcement interests, which may be antithetical to traditional civil rights positions.
They're discussed quite a bit. Why is the NAACP in Oakland supporting mass surveillance cameras that are also funded by folks like Gary Tan and some of these tech folks in San Francisco, Peter Thiel's Founders Fund, to do mass surveillance across the country? Why in the world would they be supporting this? And you'll find out more with this episode, and we hope you enjoy it, and we hope you'll visit us at Moment of Truth with Amy Chen Mills. You can find Amy Chen Mills on Facebook. You can find Moment of Truth on Facebook and Instagram, and we will be right back with you in the coming new year. Thank you for being with us.
I just want to add something real quick, though, too. William Obendorf has admitted that he agrees with Milton Friedman that he doesn't think all schools should be equal. He doesn't think schooling should be equivalent for everyone, you know? So just something to note with that as well.
Yeah. And what's occurring to me, and we'll go to D. Scott, and actually anyone really can jump in. I think it's nice when we can add to each other's points, or to even question if there's some ambiguity. This is a backlash, and this is something that I'm just realizing, like, oh, I didn't realize that there was this progressive push in San Francisco, and then there was a backlash. That happened here in Santa Cruz, where we elected 4 council members on a 7-seat council in Santa Cruz City, and that hadn't happened in a long time, and that was too much for the real estate industry. So they organized Santa Cruz Together, which sounds like one of the AstroTurf groups in San Francisco as well. And I think there's SF Together. SF Together. Okay, maybe they were modeled after Santa Cruz Together, and they recalled 2 of the council members. And so I guess what I'm wondering is there's a backlash. I'm thinking of New York. I'm thinking of Mom Donnie. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, watch out for what happens next. D. Scott, you've been tracking all of this as well, and you currently live in Oakland. What are you seeing in terms of, I think you were saying in the last show that the tech oligarchy was not successful in Oakland.
No, they weren't.
They were not successful with their PACs and so forth, all this money flooding in. They still were losing elections. They lost elections in Solano to try to create their own little mini company town. And now they're doing this sort of philanthropic thing where they're, for instance, funding the San Francisco Police Department in San Francisco, and setting up a mass surveillance center with the flock cameras, which we all know will be used for mass surveillance by the administration, already has been, and will continue to be. So I guess my question is, what do you see as what to watch out for when you have a progressive movement that has won, and then what's next?
Well, I mean, I think that the first thing we have to acknowledge is that small progressive gains are not progressive takeovers, right? So basically, to have Chesa be the DA was just a small progressive gain. The mayor was still moderate. The board was mostly still moderate. The same thing is also true here in Oakland. We had a progressive restorative justice DA in Pamela Price. We had a somewhat progressive but mostly moderate mayor. They both got recalled by these organizations, saying that there was a progressive takeover. But one of the problems is that we only have 2 council members who actually consider themselves progressives. So there was never a time when progressives actually had taken over Oakland. And also the other part of that problem is that this whole thing about that Oakland had defunded the police, which is an absolute lie. The funding for the Oakland Police Department has increased every year, like since 2020. There's never been a time when the Oakland police were defunded. So these are lies that they're actually telling. They're telling lies. A small progressive gain is not the same as a massive right-wing takeover, right? So the massive right-wing takeover, what the excuse they're trying to use is that they've been overwhelmed by progressives. But that's never been the case. The excuse that we have to give the police more money because they've been defunded, that's not true either. That's never happened. And so basically, when the AstroTurf Network actually decided they were going to come to Oakland and try to pull the same kind of influence game that they were playing in San Francisco, what they didn't realize was that Oakland is actually way more informed politically than most cities. And the reason that is because we do have a certain kind of cultural political engagement. I've lived in Oakland for 30 years. And we've had protests. We've protested Oscar Grant. That protest alone began a coalition amongst a whole bunch of people who maybe had never come outside before. Maybe they didn't protest the Iraqi wars like I did, right? I protested both. But that Oscar Grant and Occupy Oakland
Okay,
and
tell people who Oscar Grant was for those who
oh
don't know, who
wow.
aren't from the Bay Area.
Okay. Oscar Grant was a young black man who was killed in Fruitvale Station, shot in the back of the head while he was handcuffed by Officer Meserly. And at the time, they were saying that Meserly was going to walk, and that was the thing that brought people out into the streets. But it was also an organizational framework that has maintained, it's remained solidified. So when people were saying, oh, Oakland defunded the police. Well, the citizens of Oakland knew better. And we didn't fall for it because we knew better. We knew better. We already had these informational apparati that enable us to communicate with each other on that level already. We already had organizations in place like the Anti-Police Terrorism Project and a Care for Community and a Community Ready Corps. These organizations actually have been around since the early 2000s. So they inform us as well. So if someone says the police were defunded, there's tons of people join the course and say, no, that's not true. Oakland's been taken over by progressives. Oh, we wish there's only two on our council, right? So we can't and the other component, and this is the saddest part about it is that we came up with Chris Rufo. We started talking about Diane Yap. What we were also talking about when we're talking about those people is anti-blackness. The platform that actually got Chesa Boudin recalled, the platform that got the Ali Collins taken off the school board was anti-blackness. The fear of the Mongol horde coming into San Francisco because Chase was going to be so soft on crime. The black people were going to start coming from Oakland and start doing things to us if we let this guy, right? So it was this thing about trying to create this dam between Oakland and San Francisco. And that dam was created because of anti-blackness. Right, Rufo was going after CRT. He went after DEI, and at the same time, Diane Yap is over at the Manhattan Institute talking about race science and IQ and an inherent inferiority of IQ in Black people, right? So it really was the centralized argument that actually made those recalls happen. And people don't really want to talk about that. But when you go to the most diverse city in the most diverse metropolitan city in the country, which is Oakland, anti-Blackness cannot and will not ever work. And that was the reason why we were able to push back. Like we just recently pushed back against the flock cameras you were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
People came out and said, no, we are not going to be surveilled like that. We are already surveilled too much by the police. And in fact, the reason why the Black Panthers had to be formed in the first place is because we were being overly surveilled. And that is a part of our history. So the whole idea that we are so afraid of each other, right? We are not afraid of each other. We are the most diverse city in the country. So that means we're not afraid of Black people here. So like the way that you make these kind of arguments that have a tendency of working in other places, they just don't work in Oakland. So that's the reason why that election, when we had a group called Empower Oakland, and Empower Oakland was using a whole lot of Black tokens in order to give the illusion that they were with the people. But the thing was is that even that illusion was segregated, right? And people could read right through it. Like you clearly are the only Black person in the room that you're standing in. Right. And that was the reason why Lauren Taylor he ran a campaign for the Hills.
Who is Lauren Taylor?
Lauren Taylor was a candidate for mayor who was actually backed by a tech-backed PAC called Empower Oakland, which was mostly funded by Gary Tan and Coinbase and also Elon Musk. So so the way that Kevin and I have really been like studying Oakland is why does tech have and the network state, why do they have so much interest in Oakland? And I think that Jeremy had hit the nail right on the head. It's actually here, it's mostly about land. It's mostly about the fact that they think, just like they're doing in Honduras, like I said, they think they can go into black and brown communities and strong arm their way onto people's land. And if they can't buy it, they'll do it legislatively.
And D, you got to talk about the fake black organization they invented for the
Oh
campaign,
my
for the Lauren
God.
Taylor campaign.
Oh my God. The Black Action Alliance.
Wait, was Lauren Taylor a black person?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, see now, and that's the thing that people don't seem to understand, right? Like the way this apparatus is built. Okay, I'll get to what Kevin's talking about in a minute. But almost all the people in the network state do believe in race science. Curtis Yarvin believes in it. Elon Musk believes in it. Peter Thiel believes in it, and they really do think that black people are intellectually inferior. They legitimately believe that, right? But they can sell that to white moderates, right? Because whether they want to embrace it or not, a lot of white moderates feel the same way, whether they want to say it out loud or not.
Mm.
But when you try to sell that to the people that you're actually saying are low IQ, do you really think those people are so low IQ as that they'll agree with you? And that's the issue that these guys have been having when it comes to dealing with us over here in Oakland. And that is moderate and conservative alike. You have to have an extremely extreme position and be in an extremely segregated situation to accept the arguments that the network state are putting forth in Oakland, California. There's absolutely you have to know absolutely no black people, or you have to know absolutely no people of color, or you have to know just three or four. That's impossible over on this side of the bridge. It's impossible. And so that the divisionary tactics that they were using and were successfully using in San Francisco have meant nothing but dispatchment. So basically, what they did was they tried
What,
to start.
nothing but what? Dispatchment?
Yeah, they got dispatched. They got rid of.
Oh, okay,
They
gotcha.
got
Okay.
tossed. But so what they tried to do was is they tried to start an organization called the Black Action Alliance during of Lauren Taylor's run, because Lauren Taylor was actually a network state backed politician, and one of those situations where he was the only guy in the room he was standing in, only black guy who's in the room he's standing in.
Mm-hmm.
So they started an organization called the Black Action Alliance, and it popped up out of nowhere right in the first debate between Lauren Taylor and Barbara Lee, and then people started looking it up, and it was founded by a white guy named Philip Dreyfus, who actually is the guy who backed the recalls. The guy who started the organization is the guy that paid the bulk of the amount for the recalls of Pamela Price and Mayor Shing-Tao. Like it was definitely him. And people looked it up, and we were like, wait a minute, you mean this organization that nobody's ever heard of before is actually founded by a white guy who actually did the recalls? Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
that
gosh.
happened. And so, but the thing is, like people don't want to take that into account. Like what they consider the greatest deficit of Oakland's political power is actually our greatest strength. And that is we are absolutely resistant to anti-black rhetoric. We're resistant to it. We are immune to anti-black rhetoric. And what's really funny is that this is true for the whole country. Like I'm deviating a little bit, but what's really funny to me is everybody's talking about how Twitter influenced all these minds, and the people just started voting for Trump. They were all so influenced. And my question is, how come that didn't happen for black people? Black people, like black women voted 92% against Trump. Black men voted 86% against Trump.
Yeah.
So exactly how is it that black people are immune to all of this so-called propaganda? Well, because almost all of it is anti-black.
Yeah.
And then because it's anti-black, we're absolutely immune to the propaganda.
Well, and there was this weird talking point after 2024, after the election, where black men didn't vote for Harris. I'm like, really? Because every statistic I saw was about 80% of black men voted for Harris. Where did that come from?
It was 86%. It wasn't 80%. It was 86.
86, it's almost 90.
It's almost 90%. But that's what I'm saying. That lie was not for black people. That lie is actually an anti-black lie
Right.
for white people.
Right.
Right. And so that is the push. And so what we're doing in Oakland, and Kevin has done a great couple of TikToks about this, but in truth, Oakland is winning against the network state. But they keep trying to do different things. Like I said, it was 1 minute it's the flock cameras. The next minute, Gary Tan is backing an organization that's supposed to be doing street cleanups and street sweeps. And they were called the Urban Compassion Project, but they were connected to they were connected to the tech bros, and they were connected
In Oakland.
in Oakland.
Gary Tan's in San Francisco, isn't he?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and he claims to be a Democrat, and yet he's on stage often with the network state. He doesn't claim to be a Democrat. He used to, I think.
Well, no, he still claims to be a Democrat, but they all do.
They all claim to be Democrats, but then they're promoting these very far right,
Yeah,
like yeah, like oligarchical, authoritarian
yeah, I don't care what you
ideas.
say. I don't care what you say. I care what you do.
Right,
And what these guys all do are right-wing pushes. I don't care what you say. I care what you do.
right.
You back land developers. You back the police.
Yeah,
Like David Sachs hosted Donald Trump in San Francisco right before the election, and then
yeah.
he turns around and becomes the crypto czar. Harmeet Dillon, an attorney with a firm in San Francisco, ends up being our civil rights attorney for the Justice Department. Like all of these people have been lying to us this long before they could go mask off and say, "Okay, no, we were just kidding." Like that's essentially what
Now that
happened.
we've won,
Yeah, now that we've
we're
won,
taking over. Watch out.
we're
Yeah.
at MAGA now.
Get ready. Yeah. Yeah. Let me just say to everyone out there in listener land in the Santa Cruz, Monterey Bay Area, and the California Central Coast, you are listening to Moment of Truth with Amy Chen Mills at 90.7, 89.7, 89.5 FM. One station, many voices, KSQD and KSQT in Prunedale. And we are talking with Kevin Jones, D. Scott Miller, Keen Chukwunetta, all of whom have been doing a lot of research and reporting on the tech oligarchy takeover of the San Francisco Bay Area. I mean, I don't even know what's happening in San Jose. I know they're getting sued for the flock cameras, and I want to go. And Oakland's being sued actually for the CHP, as I understand it, flock cameras. I'm a little confused about what's happening there because they have them, and then they also are voting not to have them, which is confusing to me. And then the NAACP came out with a statement, from my understanding, supporting the flock cameras. Someone needs to explain this to me.
Yeah.
Okay, Keen, go for it. We haven't heard from you for a little while.
No, I did just want to, I wanted to just remark on the last little bit and then pass it off to D Scott because I know you've got something to say about this.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny that we're in this position, right, where we've been organizing against these folks and they've been calling themselves moderates for so long, but like they're like a hop, skip, and a jump away from the president right now, right? Like I deeply believe, right, that we're the real moderates because we don't believe that human development can be measured by like our wallets getting bigger, right? It's measured by like people actually living better lives, being able to stay in their communities and like build communities and make art and culture together, the things that make us humans, right? As opposed to having more wealth, having more power to control the outcomes and lives of all the people around us. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that, but I've got nothing to say on the NAACP that D. Scott can't say better. So
I was
Yeah,
horrified by the NAACP statement.
don't be.
Okay, go ahead, D. Scott. What happened?
Well, I mean, it's been a long time coming. Our the NAACP in Oakland has been compromised for a very, very long time. I think that one of the main reasons is because during the Panther phase, the NAACP lost a whole lot of its currency here because it was a church-based organization. They were capitalists. They were connected to, like, say, the Chamber of Commerce when the Panthers themselves were anti-capitalist. So these things have been coming a long time. But now it's gotten to the point where even the national chapter of NAACP decries the Oakland chapter. The Oakland chapter is
That's
no
saying a
the
lot, I think.
well, no, that's the truth. The truth is that a lot of the people on the board of NAACP are also investors in the coal facility that they're trying to build in West Oakland, right? They also are involved with the Oakland Police Officers Association. Like they support Oakland Police Officers Association, despite the fact that racial profiling is still going on, even though it's not as large in the Bay in Oakland as it is in the rest of the Bay Area. It's still happening. But they support big business, they support land developers, they support the cops. They also get most of their support from the more conservative churches in Oakland, California. So on the American and on the national and global scale, the Oakland NAACP sounds like it has some resonance. But if you actually lived in Oakland, you would know nobody listens to the Oakland NAACP. The Oakland NAACP are responsible for uh, they actually did help a bigoted homophobe get a person fired from their position in City Hall less than a year ago. They actually they had a press conference, and even before they had the press conference, members of that press conference were actually talking to people in City Hall, urging them to fire this person on the basis of a rumor made by a homophobic bigot because the person is gay. So they actually did go and support him being terminated for that. And
Wow.
then when he was terminated, they had a press conference kind of celebrating it. When when we had a thing where we had an In-N-Out burger on Hagenberger Road. It's next to the airport. In-N-Out burgers suck. Nobody eats. We have the best hamburgers around here, man. Nobody likes In-N-Out, but In-N-Out closed. And these guys went and had a prayer vigil in the parking lot
For In-N-Out.
for In-N-Out.
Oh my.
The NAACP organized a prayer vigil for the In-N-Out that was closing.
Okay.
Oh,
So
wait, can I
people-
add something real quick too?
Yeah,
though?
well, then I want to circle back to this coal plant business, which is something that D. Scott brought up in the first show that we did, which we will link to in show notes. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say too, and this has been reported by Omar, who runs Hyphy Republic and the Oakland Observer. Um, they're in that same parking lot of the In-N-Out Burger is a Chinese restaurant that is successful. That has lines out the parking lot. Like it's literally everyone loves it. No one loved In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger tried to claim it was crime and it was in a dangerous area. Could not push back against the fact that the Chinese restaurant is doing great.
Interesting. All right, well, let's go back to this network state idea. Again, I mean, I think this is the thing that should concern the rest of the nation, besides everything else that we've been talking about, including flock cameras. And full disclosure, I am part of the campaign to get flock out of Santa Cruz. City Council is going to vote on this in January, folks, so turn up. We've been tracking Oakland very carefully in the lawsuits against Oakland and also against San Jose. But D. Scott, when you said, and any, please, Keen or Kevin, if you have anything to add, just jump in. We can have a free-for-all here. D. Scott, you were saying, and I couldn't follow because it was I was like, oh, what? Like it didn't register for me that Oakland would have a coal power plant. In the state of California, no, that's not what's happening. Please, I know that there's something happening at the naval base in Alameda.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's the same as the Coast Guard base where ICE was showing up. Okay, it's a different place. So
no.
explain.
Okay, all right. These are two separate things.
Okay, two separate things.
So the Coast Guard base is actually a place where a certain network state company would like to start a network state, right? But ICE and went there first, right? And like I was telling you offline, basically what happened was that strategically is the worst place that ICE could have used to try to invade Oakland because there's only one route in and one route out. Right. So like you're talking about this massive, you're trying to do this massive mobilization. But the way that Oakland was able to fight back against that was just by blocking that one entrance. So like so if you think about it, like, OK, that's strategically dumb if you're only thinking about what ICE is trying to do. But if you also realize that the network.
And this happened a few months ago or a month ago or so when ICE actually showed up. And San Francisco, interestingly, had made a phone call. The mayor, the billionaire mayor, called Trump and said, hey, we're trying to do something out here. Please don't mess it up, which I think is probably take over San Francisco, these tech oligarchs. But anyway, continue.
Well, so basically, but the thing with where the ICE went is that the real issue is they have a serious asbestos problem there. Right. So what better way to create cover to remove that asbestos for the network state than to put the Army Corps of Engineers in there saying that they're ICE and they're not. They're no. But I think this is just me theorizing. But the removal of that asbestos is the only thing that's going to make it livable for any kind of network state apparatus.
And how do you know they're targeting that? You said I think Musk was targeting that area.
Well, no, Musk was targeting West Oakland.
Okay.
An article came out 2 months ago that explicitly stated that a network state operative is interested in that space. And the only reason why he hasn't taken it over yet is because of an overabundance of asbestos. That is an article. I mean, I'm sure Kevin and I could dig it up for you afterwards. But then the other thing is that we have been having to deal with Phil Tagami, who is a land developer out here. And he's been pushing for having a coal facility, a place where we actually do transport coal and possibly even refine it in West Oakland. And it's already been passed. Like this is something that we have not been able to stop.
Wow.
And one of the reasons why we have been able to stop it is because it is supported by people like the NAACP who are deeply invested in it. And so on the NAACP, on the NAACP's board, is a guy who actually runs a survey system, a survey service. His name is McConnell. And what he did was he had a survey where he surveyed like maybe 5 people, and it said the majority of Black people in West Oakland want this facility. And so no, this legitimately happened.
3 out of 5, and we interviewed 5.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what he did. And so that is happening. But the thing that was most concerning is because if Elon Musk had interest in, and I sincerely think he did, I sincerely think he had interest in turning West Oakland to what he's trying to turn it into in Memphis. Why did he choose particularly predominantly Black communities in order to try to build these data centers? Why was he interested in the same place of an energy center in the same place where they're trying to build another energy center, dual energy centers in West Oakland?
Why?
Well, because that's the network state. They need the energy. They needed to. They needed to.
But why in predominantly Black communities? That may be naive, but why?
That is very naive.
Yeah, because he doesn't care. And
But
look at the same thing with the SpaceX facility in Texas. That was a mainly Latino.
Because of population, we don't care about their respiratory health. We don't care about their
in fact,
they don't have maybe the funds to fight back in the way that like a wealthy neighborhood, a wealthy white neighborhood.
There you go.
You can take it even deeper and say you can throw in Stephen Miller's concept of depopulation. Like they want to depopulate this country. The one of the main
depopulate people of color.
Yes. Like
yes,
by any means necessary. Any means necessary.
Yeah, I just was writing about that. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
Scary clip of his dad going around right now where I don't know if you've seen it, but it's Elon Musk's father basically being asked about great replacement. And he's like, yeah, it'd be a terrible thing if white people were no longer the majority in the United States. And the interviewer is like baffled that anybody would say that publicly in an interview. So he asks him again and he doubles down on it. So, I mean, I don't have to be nice with my words with Elon Musk. He's a grandson of apartheid and he's still in that system. So
yeah.
South Africa,
Germany. Peter Thiel's, I believe, grandfather or father came from Germany.
David Sachs.
Wondering, David
Sachs. He's also South Africa.
So it's like none of this ever went away. It's just reared its ugly head again, and it was just waiting for the right timing and the right person to help make that happen, and the right amounts of money, I suppose. And that is, I mean, I literally was just writing this today. Everything makes sense if you understand that white people do not want to be in the minority in this country, at least these particular white people, and they will do anything of any nature, of any vile, cruel, horrific nature to stop that. And that is what we are seeing. And then if you look at it that way, everything makes sense, right? Besides you can add in patriarchy and
but
masculinity. Yeah.
No, Musk using Doge to gut USAID is going to kill 400 million people by 2030 in South Africa, in Africa, and in the global South.
400 million. Wow.
Yeah, people will starve to death. It has been predicted like about somewhere around 400 million people will starve to death in famine. And that is that's a part of the network state depopulation program.
Well, and the weird thing about this, okay, here's a question. First of all, I do want to lay out a framework for folks. If you understand Oakland and the East Bay, so the oil refineries of this area are not in San Francisco, which has become, I believe, more of a gentrified, predominantly white, as far as I know. I could be wrong about that. A city now, but they are in the East Bay. They're in Richmond. They are in near Solano. They're on the other side of the bay.
Martinez.
And Martinez.
Yeah.
And so why not also have a coal plant or a coal processing facility or whatever the heck they're thinking about, which is insane given the current climate crisis. And we have no carbon budget left. We are overshot by multiple factors, by many factors of exponential factors, right, in terms of what we can afford to put into the atmosphere. And now they're talking about building a coal plant. I mean, here's the thing. You would think that even like labor would be of interest in terms of people of color. It always has been, right, for people who are racist and capitalists. They're saying, that slavery, institutionalized labor within prisons, and slave labor in prisons and very cheap migrant labor. It doesn't seem like they care about that anymore. They don't even want the labor part. Is that, I mean, that's a question that I have.
No,
Just
that I don't think that's true. I think that it's multi-pronged.
Yeah.
I think that like when we were dealing with the recalls, all of a sudden black youth were criminalized by our big three news channels in a way that
Yes.
I had never seen before in my life. Like I said, I've
Yes.
been here for 30 years. Like they definitely want to put the young guys in jail. They definitely want to do that. But when you think about the H-1B visa, right, that is a better slave. That is a better slave. That is the person who actually would be grateful to get the script, grateful to work in the company town. And if they step out of line, all you have to do is just yank that little piece of paper and they have to go back to wherever they came from. Right. So, and you're going to need people who actually, it's better that they train in South Asia. Right. They have the skills. You don't have to train them, but you bring them in on the H-1B and they are trapped in your company. They can't go anywhere. Right. So the people who are going to be building the data centers are going to be prison labor of the black youth and black and brown youth in these lower income communities. But the workers inside the factories themselves are going to be H-1Bs who are actually better slaves.
Hmm. It's like
Right.
okay.
it's a sex trafficking model, you know? You basically get them to do what you want to do by holding their visa.
Yeah, it's human trafficking. Yeah, so this place, this network state idea that D. Scott, you're saying they're thinking of a building. You think they're thinking of building in the Coast Guard site. Okay,
Yep.
where I guess, are there still federal agents there besides the Coast Guard? Is there a Coast Guard there, or is it abandoned?
No, no, it's
No,
closed.
it's closed because of the asbestos.
Okay,
Mm.
but are there still people there from the federal
There's
administration?
really
No.
no way to know
Okay.
because here when the way the ICE is actually operating is it seems to be they're mostly going through California Highway Patrol, and California Highway Patrol can actually overstep our sanctuary city lines. So basically, if California Highway Patrol catches you on the highway, that's their domain. They can pull you off in Oakland. I've actually seen this happen. They can pull you off in Oakland and disappear you, but they made the arrest or the apprehension on the highway. Now, California sanctuary, we have more strict sanctuary city laws than even California has. So that's what they're doing. Like, so there's no way to know. There's no way to know like where they're coming from or where they're going. We have no idea. But we do know that CHP is already involved, so they don't really need to come the way they did in LA. Like
Okay, so
CHP is helping. So
okay. But I just want to go back to this Coast Guard facility and this idea of a network state operation happening there, because it sounds like what you're saying is there will be black and brown labor to build whatever needs to get built, whether a data center, whether a coal plant, or and then the people who will actually live there will be employees who are maybe on H-1B visas, who are then sort of stuck in a company town, which is the whole idea of a network state, which we already know because that's been out for many years now. This idea of a network state, which you can actually find the document online. I think it's called the Network State. That's the manifesto, and Peter Thiel is someone who's also advocating for this, and the idea of just autonomous cities within countries or adjacent or floating in the sea was his first idea. So, is that the idea then you think might be happening?
well, I mean, I think that like you brought up Solano, in Honduras is a place called Prospera. It's also failed. They just because like let's be honest, Palantir is actually the name of something from Dungeons and Dragons from Lord of the
Lord of the
Rings.
Rings.
Right, you wrote that. You like So basically, they have this fantasy, this kind of science fiction fantasy about the way that the people are going to respond. And the thing that I find really interesting about that is that if you have no understanding of human nature, there is no way you can program AI to respond to what you think, how you think humans will respond. You're not connected to human nature enough to be able to make these kind of determinations.
Right.
Each one of these guys thinks they're experts because they're really good at programming. That's really what it comes down
Or
to.
making money, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So I mean, like you're really not all that smart. But the problem is that you have enough power and you have enough influence to implement your stupid idea. And that's what we
So wait, just to go back though, so you think this is what they might be trying to do with this
yeah,
Coast Guard base?
Yes.
What I said was maybe even bring in employees and have housing there for them,
Yeah.
not like housing for the tech executives where they're going to probably stay in Woodside and Pacific Heights, but
Right.
they're not going to. Okay, gotcha. We are getting to the top of the hour for our third show on San Francisco. Where art thou? What is happening in San Francisco that we need to be paying attention to, and the greater Bay Area? We don't have a lot of time. I want to go to each one of you and ask you to add something to the conversation that you think is missing or what you think people should do. Either way. And Keen, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you because we haven't heard from you as much recently, and then we'll go to Kevin, and then we'll go to D. Scott.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna hit the same refrain as last time. Roll up your sleeves and get involved locally. I think that the only way to get out of this is to organize locally, and that means not waiting for anybody to come and save you, but finding solutions to the problems around you with the people that are closest to you, both in terms of relation, but also geography. That means building up new connections to folks and finding ways to keep your community safe and answer the problems that are there in front of you. Um, I say it all the time, but there are no daddies, there are no masters. Nobody's coming for us. If we want to build a better world, we got to do it ourselves, and that's always been the case. And I think we're strongest when we have those skills and have those muscles fit and firing. So,
Thank you, Keen. On the board of directors for the Phoenix Project. Do you want to give out that website or any other websites?
yeah, we're at phoenixprojectnow.com. Let me just triple check that just to make sure I'm not butchering that. Jeremy would kill me. But yeah, that's where you can find us. We're also up on social media as well.
Phoenix Project SF, I think, or something like that. Or I know there are a few.
phoenixprojectnow.com.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And Kevin, you too with Doom Loop Dispatch, co-host of Doom Loop Dispatch, which is the phrase that means the bashing of San Francisco that conservatives and far right folks have been doing over time to make, I think, Democrats look bad and progressives look bad and so on and so forth. Kevin Jones, tell us what your last words would be and where you might want people to get more information from you.
Well, on all our socials, and please support our Patreon. We have a Patreon account, and I mean, honestly, $1 a day, $1 a month makes a huge difference. So if you can contribute, that'd be great. But yeah, honestly, just keep yourself informed. Do not take the push narrative. Honestly, always be critical of the big narrative when it comes to YIMBYism and that. Oh, we'll solve our homeless crisis with housing. No, always look into the details. Same thing with what these techies are pushing and their claims of being moderate. Just always just do the research. And then also too, if you are scared about this stuff, honestly, showing up at city council meetings to fight, to push back, to give your opinions makes a difference. Organizing, and especially, and was very true with Barbara Lee. One of the big reasons why she won and she beat the fascist tech machine was organizing, community organizing, people going from door to door to make sure their community was informed.
Talk about that election for people who don't know. Barbara Lee was the former congresswoman representing that area, right? And she is now,
Yes.
What did she just run for?
She's now the mayor of Oakland.
The mayor of Oakland, and that she went up against a tech oligarch supported candidate.
The guy we mentioned earlier, Lauren Taylor, who had all the fake organizations working behind him and had a bunch of money behind him, and she beat it.
Yeah, we talked about more. Okay, thank you so much. And Doom Loop Dispatch is where folks can find you. Is that doomloopdispatch.com or?
Oh, no, we don't have a website. We're just on all the socials. So if you go to any social, Blue Sky, Twitter, etc., you'll find us. But on top of that, we're mostly YouTube is, I would say, a good way, or our podcast. Well, so subscribe to us in all the, usual places you get your podcast.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. And D. Scott, last words.
Well, I mean, like I say, I think that what Kevin said about Oakland should really lead the way on this. I think that's absolutely true. I think we should organize in the way that Oakland organizes. We should look at our own histories of our own regions, because I mean this is the truth. Like resistance models are in your community. You may not even know those resistance models are in your community, but those resistance models have been there for a very long time. So try to find where those resistance models are. Try to find the history of your resistance community. Every community has a place, whether it was environmentalism, whether it was racial justice, whether it was school equality. Like every community has an organization that's already pre-existing. Try to connect with those people. Try to figure out, like, and things as simple as food banks, things as simple as that could be good places to start looking to organize, because it is going to be about mutual aid and communities helping themselves, like Keen said. But at the same time, I would not trust local news at all. In fact, turn it off. Don't watch it. Find another way to get your information. If you must, like, go to BBC, go to the Guardian UK newspaper. We actually do have a Guardian US that is one of the more faithful kind of reporting agencies. Don't mess with CNN. Don't mess with MSNBC. Forget WAPO. Forget NYT. They're all owned by oligarchs. They will misinform you, and even worse than that, it's more than misinform you. They'll manipulate you. So if I were you, I would turn all that off. I'd turn off all that noise and focus on local. And if you do want to know what's going on nationally, like, go to sources that you trust, and sources that are no longer that make sure that when you are getting these sources, that they're not compromised, because so many of them are. So if you really want to guard your peace and guard your knowledge, understand that anything that's happening in corporate America is no longer your friend. That's over. That era is done. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a new era and a new media to actually help the people again, because that's not the intent of journalism on mainstream level anymore. It's no longer to inform and to teach. It is now about the bottom line and manipulating the public. So keep that in mind.
I did actually just want to chime in on the history thing, just to piggyback on what D. Scott said. I'm embarrassed that I didn't say that, actually, because I teach labor history at City College in San Francisco, and action without a historical grounding, without theoretical grounding, you're going to be swinging your arms like windmills for a long time until you figure out the right path. And there's a resource that I've used pretty often. It's called the Working Class History Map. I think it's map.workingclasshistory.com. If you hop on there, it's a great resource that will tell you really interesting stories that have happened, like, in your neighborhood and in your locality, where working class people have tried to make a better world. So yeah.
That's great. Okay, thank you. And D. Scott, did you have a website? Is it Doom Loop as well, or a website,
Yeah.
different website?
Well, I mean, like, I'm starting my own thing. If you look up D. Scott Miller at Substack.com.
Okay.
I'm right now doing a mutual aid list. I just finished doing one for Thanksgiving, making sure people got Thanksgiving meals and Thanksgiving packages. Starting next week, I'm going to start talking about things like clothing and toy drives. So right now, that's my primary focus, is mutual aid, making sure that the community is taking care of itself. Solano, Oakland, and San Francisco.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for joining me.
All right, my pleasure.
That was our conversation with some of the podcasters, researchers, activists, and journalists who have been covering the tech bro takeover of the San Francisco Bay Area, the city itself, the area around it, just over the bay. If you cross the bridges from San Francisco to Oakland, that is the East Bay. And we've been talking about that. And I think it's a very important subject for the whole nation to be thinking about, for New York to be thinking about, as they try to understand the backlash to progressive policies that happened here in San Francisco in the Trump era. And also want to say happy holidays to everyone. Happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah, happy Merry Christmas, or whatever you celebrate. The solstice. This show is coming out right before, I believe, the Christmas holiday, and possibly Hanukkah. I haven't checked the dates. And I want to thank you for your patronage. I also want to mention my own Substack, which is Moment of Truth Dispatch on Substack, where I talk about local issues. I write about local issues. You can also find me at Amy Chen Mills on Facebook and on Instagram. And you can find Moment of Truth on Instagram and Facebook as well. So join us at all those locations. And if you appreciated this program, join us every first and third Monday at 6 p.m. for our mostly live broadcasts, except for these last two, and then pick up our edited podcasts at Apple, Spotify, and at YouTube under the KSQD YouTube channel as the podcast Moment of Truth with Amy Chen Mills. It really helps boost our program if you like, rate, and share our show at your favorite site and write a review. Visit our Substack, Moment of Truth Dispatch, for more on everything we talk about here. Plus, thanks to our entire team, Nyako Nyasu, Mei-Ling Obinada, Todd Zimmerman, and Joyce Schendel-Decker. Theme song by Zimmerman of Nativeverse Studios, logo by Kathy Krizik, and thanks to the entire KSQD team on the California Central Coast. Shoot us an email at amy@ksqd.org with questions or comments. And remember, if we don't use our democracy, we lose our democracy. Thanks for tuning in.